Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Manette Saloon. And by the way, welcome as well to the Smokestack's Local Legends. This is our pre-trivia activity where we interview a local legend in our community. And tonight, we are joined by none other than Garrett Kelly. Round of applause for Garrett Kelly, everybody. Yes. Garrett, I'm an admirer of you, and we're going to talk about something that you've created here in Bremerton and beyond that is really incredible. It's called Liminal Earth, and one of the things that Liminal Earth is about is, of course, it's a very spooky time of year. It is almost Halloween, the paranormal. We're thinking about some of those things, but also just our own mythology and our own lore in our communities is really something amazing, and you've taken that to the next level. This man and a few of his friends have created, among other things, a TikTok following of more than 57,000 people. 57,000 people are watching stuff about Bremerton and the crazy stories and bizarre stuff that happen here, thanks to a lot of your efforts. So welcome. I'm really glad to have you here.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. Now, maybe we should just start with the fact that you are wearing a shrimp on your head.
Yeah.
To explain a little bit about Liminal Earth and who you are. Let's start there.
Yeah. Well, the shrimp is based on a story, a true account of a woman named Virginia Staples, who it was published in this magazine called Strange Magazine, but in 1948, she says that she was living up on Denny, up near the Perry Avenue Mall.
Yep,
it's a small street, and she was in her house, and she went down into the basement, and while she was doing the laundry, she felt like there was something behind her, and she turned around, and there was a giant 6-foot entity with like tentacles that were like waving at her. And of course it freaked her out. She had no idea what she was seeing. And she remembers that the landlord had told her that there was holes in the walls that went all the way down to the water. So she packed her suitcase, left, and a couple years later, she never came back, she said. But she said she was at an aquarium in Seattle and she saw a shrimp. And she's like, that's what it looked like. So the thing I like about this story, that's the basics of the story, but the thing I like about it is that no other town has their own unique shrimp cryptid. Bremerton is in a unique place where we get to claim Shrimpy for our own. So I think that's why I think we should really hold on to that and make it our own thing.
Yeah, you embraced it, and you moved here in 2018 from the other side of the water. Is that right?
Yeah.
And really, very quickly, with the advent of TikTok and with social media, I think liminal things, which maybe we should start with. What does that mean?
Yeah.
What is the definition of?
It kind of means
liminal?
like in between, like the in between place. It has newer meanings that people use to mean just like uncanny, but it kind of means like the transition space or a transition between places. And like other things could be liminal too, like Mardi Gras is the liminal time, like between religious events, or like different parts of your, So it just means like on the threshold as you go from one place to another. So.
And how did your success really start to take off, you think? What was it that resonated with people about who may or may not believe in all things liminal?
Well, first I'll start and say that Liminal Earth was originally a map. Okay. So I was living in Seattle and Seattle was going through all these changes, Amazon and all these places. I lived there for 20 years, and all these places that I knew were disappearing. And so me and my friend and I decided to make a map and kind of treat it like it was like a Tolkien Lord of the Rings map, but of Seattle. And this is where I saw like this weird thing, like a real weird thing that had happened to us, and kind of treat it like a magical place that was like being encroached upon by Mordor. So that was kind of the original idea. And then we're like, well, let's get some friends to put other weird things on this map. And then all of a sudden we were getting inundated with people wanting to tell their weird story to us. And So that's how it started, and that got some buzz for that. And people continue to send us stories of things that you can put on the map.
Awesome.
But then when I moved to Bremerton, that is when Jeremy, my friend, said, "Oh, look, you're moving to Bremerton. You don't know anything about it. Here's a monster you should know about." So he told me about Shrimpy.
Yeah.
And then
Bremerton took it up a notch.
Right,
for you.
totally. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I've just like dedicated. It's been a way for me to learn about the history of Bremerton.
Yeah.
And to learn about all the little pockets of stuff. Like, what's that? Like, why is this an empty parking lot? What was that before? Like.
Yeah.
So like, I've gotten into learning about the history of the place as I kind of sleuth out. Like, that's a creepy spot. What is that? And I learn, as people tell me their stories, I learn about the places.
Yeah.
And then TikTok was a new thing that happened kind of during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Out of like restlessness.
Sure. And so it's kind of an avenue there.
Yeah.
What do you say to people who say I don't believe this stuff?
Right.
I got to be honest, I'm skeptical. What do you say to them as far as not just why this is resonating with people, but why should they care, even if they don't sort of believe in the in-between of sort of our realities?
I mean, for me, I just think it's fun, but it's also like a place to, like find meaning. You can find meaning in like the mundane and have a connection to where you live. And I feel like myths can do that, and like we can create our new myths for the places that we live. And you don't have to necessarily believe them as true in a rational, scientific way to still extract meaning out of those kinds of stories. Like, you don't have to believe in Gandalf and hobbits to understand the stories of those that is trying to tell. So, and we could do that right here in reality with the places that we are. And it's, I don't know, I personally have feelings though that if you start putting your attention on places, weird stuff starts happening, or maybe you just frame it that way. I don't know, but like, for instance, there's a place at the Perry Avenue Mall where there's a phone booth that's just been like, it's broken, doesn't work. And one day I saw this, like, what's this phone booth? And I picked it up. There was no line, but I was like, I'm gonna make this an astral phone booth. And so I left an interdimensional voicemail on it. Said, if there's any entities out there want to talk to me, I'm all ears. I was being a little cocky, and I hung it up. And then like a couple days later, this friend in Indiana wrote to me that I only know through like Twitter. I've never met her. She's like, Garrett, I had a dream about you, and like you were driving. I was driving through a cemetery, and then you were driving through the cemetery. And you came over to my house, and you came inside, and I was feeling sick, and you put a blanket over my head, and then you put headphones on me that were making all this noise, and you were trying to talk to me through the headphones, and I couldn't understand you. And the thing that was weird about that is that was stuff I was doing in a cemetery the day before with like a blindfold and these headphones that were making all this noise.
Wow.
And it felt to me like she was like passing a message back from that phone booth thing. Like, I saw you. I know where you are. And, like, it creeped me out. Like, I'm like, and it could be completely coincidence.
Sure.
But I like to tell it as a news story that it was something like reaching back, saying like, oh yeah, we see you.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to believe that or not, but it's fun to make that connection and have a new story to tell about this broken phone booth that's otherwise doing nothing.
You still have a connection. Yeah, I think what's really interesting myself is, if you read like Sagan or anybody else that talks about, like, if you showed this phone to Thomas Jefferson,
right.
The idea that technology is magic to someone who's never seen something like an iPhone.
Right.
That's going to be magic to them, and that our world does work in really mysterious ways that we truly don't understand. We are advancing in so many ways in terms of science and progress and everything, but there's still a lot that's left to be unexplained. Right?
Yeah, I agree. Yes.
Yeah, and what's cool about what you're doing, I think, is that if it highlights in a way, and this is where I think we are kind of kindred spirits, is if a block in Bremerton had a bunch of stories that we know that are researched, yes, you throw in a little magical realism or liminal or paranormal, you're still getting lots of people to learn about our unique history of where we live.
It has like practical application, whether or not you believe in anything magical. You don't have to believe in it to, I think, still have fun and find meaning. There's other things you can be doing or getting out of that experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I was going to say something else.
Well, I'm curious what you're up to next. Go ahead with that thought if you want. But also, what's next for Garrett and for Liminal Earth?
What's next? Well, I was going to say real quick that, I don't treat, there's an idea of this paranormal investigator thing that's almost like they're treating it like a science, and they're trying to do this kind of, parapsychology, and I'm not one of those people, and I don't care about evidence, and, I mean, those people can do whatever they want. I just separate the science part of it. I believe in science as a separate thing, but this is more, to me, is more of an art thing. It's more of a storytelling thing. It's more of a personal, connection thing. And for instance, when I'm using tarot cards, I personally am not someone who believes they're from the ether, or someone is choosing that card to be the card that I see. For me, it's when I turn that card, what do I feel when I see that? What are the unconscious things that come up, and to pay attention to that and make connections and think about it. That's the part that's interesting to me. I don't believe necessarily spirits are manipulating that.
Got it.
So that's my differentiation.
Yeah.
What's next? What's next for me?
Yeah. Just kind of keep your ear to the railroad tracks.
Yeah, I don't
see what you see.
Yeah, I've been working on this thing with kind of it's complicated. I don't want to get into that.
Okay.
I was going to tell you the other thing that I was going to tell you about is that I was just in Delphi, in Greece. Can I tell you about that?
Yeah, I want to hear this because we happen to. I mean, speaking of things liminal, we both happened to visit the city of Bologna, Italy, on the same day this summer. Strangely, had no idea.
We could have right by each other.
We absolutely could.
Eating like a big sandwich.
Yeah.
But
yeah, you made it to Delphi, which of course is incredibly famous in Greek mythology.
Right. There was like a prophetess there who and all these different rulers would come and get their fortune told by her, and for like a long time, and I didn't really know what to expect when I went there. I kind of went in cold, but when I got there, I'd always heard about the Oracle of Delphi, and I was like, wow, it's going to be this huge magical place, and it's just a tiny town. Bremerton is vastly bigger than this place that I've been reading about since I was a kid, and I had this hold on the world for a while, and so it really inspired me that we can be creating this kind of magic myth stuff in our little town here, and finding the little pockets of cool, weird experiences here. We could be doing that ourselves, and we don't have to even go to Delphi to have that kind of magic. So it just really inspired me. I feel like that we should be looking into our hometowns and our communities and learning about the history and engaging with it in a magical way. That's my
absolutely.
I hope,
Well, you look at Greek society. So I mean, some of the oldest books in the history. If Homer even wrote both the Odyssey and the Iliad, or the stories of Perseus and the stories of Odysseus, of course, and the incredible things that they did, and the intermixing of things that were probably true, but with the gods' influence and everything. So interesting the way that mythology, and we have to think that in modern day there is some evolution of that as well.
Right. And they've left this lasting thing that's still there. You can see the relics of what they did.
Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to talk about is there is this park that I found out about that is right behind my house. After I moved here, I had heard that there's this abandoned park.
Yes.
It's called Arvon Park, and it's gated off.
Right not far from Ivy Green Cemetery.
Yeah, it's right next to the cemetery, and it's all gated off. You can't go into it.
Yep.
And I was like, what is this park? Yeah.
Vacated by a church, right?
Yes,
If
it
I
was
remember right.
a Christian, or no, just a spiritualist church that I think so this park was there, and I talked to the neighbors, and they said, oh, yeah, I've seen a raccoon go down the slide. I was like, what? And so I got a trail cam, and that was some of the first TikToks I was doing, is trying to catch this raccoon playing on this park slide. And to me, it's like this very liminal place. It doesn't know what it is. It's no longer a park. It's not anything new yet.
It's in between.
It's this in-between place.
Yeah.
And, like, we can make it anything we want, you know? Like, we can help transform it and give it a new life. So I made a TikTok where I took a box, and I put a mystery object inside the box, and I hid it in the park. And I said, don't come here in real life. Come here in your dreams. And try to come to this park and find this box and open it and tell me what's in the box. And like thousands and thousands of people have been trying to find out what's in that box in their dreams.
Yeah.
And it's so cool that like that has like thousands of views. All these people will know about this empty park in Bremerton.
Right.
That's not being used, and we could turn it into like a dream park. Like that could be a thing that we leave for Bremerton if we wanted to, you know.
Yeah.
I was trying to lobby the city council, like, hey, we should make this like the official dream park of Bremerton.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that your success has brought for you, of course, is the sort of the challenges, but also the amazing aspects of social media.
Yeah.
And I just wondered if we could close with that, just sort of what you have discovered about using social media. We see it in all aspects of our lives. Right. It permeates everything. It pollutes our politics sometimes, but it also brings people who haven't seen each other for 50 years to their high school reunions. I mean, what do you reflect on as far as like society's overall impact from social media?
Man, that's a big question. I mean, right now I'm in a kind of a social media frustration with like what you're talking about, a lot of the like negative feelings. And we actually decided to leave some of the more popular social media things. One thing I do want to maybe talk about is, I mean, I love TikTok. I think it's a fun thing. There's some drawbacks to it. But there's a new one that maybe people don't know about called Mastodon. And I think that is an interesting one because it's about the ownership, the people that own the Mastodon instance I'm on are just my friends. And communities could have a Mastodon instance. We could have a Bremerton Mastodon instance with just Bremerton community members talking. And to me, that is something I would love to see more of, that community engagement aspect, and, you know, people talking about what's going on locally.
Yeah.
There's a difference, though. I mean, I like being on. When I was actually in Delphi, someone recognized me.
Wow.
Which felt super weird.
Yeah.
Because he's like, "Are you on TikTok?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I was like, I saw your TikTok, and I thought you were Jack Black, but then no, it's not. But I know who you are, so.
Wow.
It's super weird. Like, TikTok does have some strange magic to it, too, so.
That's so cool.
That's why you should get on there.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Garrett, our time is up. It's been such a pleasure to have you. You are recognized in Delphi. You're revered here in Bremerton. Can I have one more round of applause for Garrett Kelly, everybody? You are amazing. We will be back with trivia at 7 o'clock. Thanks so much for tuning in to this latest Local Legends. I'm Josh Farley. Have a good night.